Hey, everybody. Welcome to the show. Welcome to Biztainment Weekly. And I have a huge announcement for everybody. Huge. Okay, maybe it's not that huge, but it's pretty cool. So, Biztainment Weekly is sunsetting. I know that sounds bad, but it's not. It's not bad. It's actually going to be MJB Podcast. It kind of makes sense that we're going to be moving it over to Magazine Jukebox and a podcast and dealing with our partners and vendors. But this is an exciting time for us as we continue to grow our podcast. But yeah, so I am Scott Janney, your host. It kind of makes more sense now when I'm able to say that I'm the CEO and co-founder of Magazine Jukebox, and you're on the MJB podcast. Kind of makes sense. All right, so but today I am stoked. I am absolutely stoked. We have an incredible guest with a little bit that I know about him, but I'm intrigued, and I'm going to be picking on him today. He is buckled up, ready to go. He has the best backdrop ever. I don't even know where he's at, but it looks really cool. But I have Tyler Woodall. Welcome to the show, Tyler.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited.
Yeah, man. Awesome. Well, look, Tyler, we are going to talk all about you. But first, what I like to do and what I always do is I bust out what we call the LinkedIn moment. So for those of you who listen to the show, those of you who watch, LinkedIn moment is all about positive posts on LinkedIn. I'm always looking for people that are being positive, stating positive stuff, accolades, those who are, something cool has happened in their company. We want to share it and get it out there. So my buddy, I'm going to start this off, my buddy, Bill Pollard. He's a community banker, commercial real estate lender. But Bill here, he's actually here locally here in the Hampton Roads, Virginia area. And it says today is the 7th anniversary of the first F3 workout I attended at Western Branch Middle School at 5:30 a.m. on 11/30/2016. All right. It's a long post, so I'm not going to get into all the schematics here, but Bill and I have conversed back and forth a couple of times, and I keep saying I'm going to get out there and work out with them, but I don't. And it all has to do with it's at 5:30 in the morning. So Bill, we've got to figure that out. But no, I'm just kidding. Keep doing you and keep doing this. It's incredible. If you get to watch some of their videos, everybody gets like a call sign or a name, and they get to know each other. And it's just a band of brothers. It's a faith-based and like kind of military-esque workout program that they do, and it's free. That's the coolest part. It's absolutely free, and they spread the love all around the community. And I think these are in all kinds of different states. So when Bill sees this, he'll comment on it and share more about it. But super excited for you. Congratulations, 7th anniversary, the 7-year itch. Congratulations. All right, next one. Now, this is someone or a company that Magazine Jukebox has actually just started having conversations with. And so, of course, I'm always doing research and looking up companies before we partner with people. But over at Vision Works of America, which is based out of Texas, is being recognized as a top workplace in San Antonio, Texas. It's a badge of honor to be proud of because it comes directly from our employee feedback. I love that. If you are a business and you are having your employees share the love, then that's great. And being recognized for that is even better. So congratulations, Vision Work. We look forward to working with you and excited about all to come. But now it is time. I hope you're buckled up, Tyler. We got a lot to unravel here, brother. So
Let's do it.
It's funny. I call everybody brother. Like I do that. And there's this meme of Hulk Hogan like crying. And it says when he realizes that not everybody is your brother. And I was like, oh my gosh. So I send it to my wife. Like, that's how we communicate now. My wife and I, we always communicate through memes. Like, we don't even talk. We just send each other emojis or whatever and how we're feeling. I'm just kidding. But no, you don't know this yet, Tyler, but my wife is my best friend. I talk about her often. She's co-founder. She's also our CPO for Magazine Jukebox. And she is the CEO and president of a bunch of insurance companies that her and I started many, many years ago. And we found out that has a lot to do with what you do. So
Yep.
I think we have a lot to unpack here. So, okay. So Tyler Woodall, he is the owner of, wait for it. All right, there it is. C4 Solutions. C4 Solutions is doing amazing things. And he just started this. I know it says on here 1.5 years ago, so a year and a half. But really, it's more realistic. Like February, I think, is when you branched out. And you're going to talk all about that. And he says, we help businesses to blow up by automating, eliminating, and delegating tasks. I can run my business from my cell phone on 10 hours a week. I already warned him I'm going to dive into this because I've been an entrepreneur for 20 years. I'm a little bit older than you, I would assume. I'm 40, and I have yet to learn the 10-hour work week. So my joke is always that you become an entrepreneur so you can work 80 hours just so you don't work 40. So that's kind
Yep.
of the rule. So, Tyler, welcome to the show, man. Excited to have you.
Sure.
Thank you for taking time cut out for here with, I guess I'll say Biztainment Weekly one last time, and then
Man.
we'll call it MJB Podcast. So my marketing team's gonna be all excited about this. Okay, so Tyler, give us a little bit about you. Tell us about your background, and then we're going to dive into why you decided to be a knucklehead like me and start a company.
Yeah. So I've grown up super entrepreneurial. I've that's always been my dream is to own a business. And so out of college, I picked the job. I had several offers, but I picked the one that I felt like put me in the position to own a business the fastest. And it ultimately, I was doing commercial insurance, selling property and casualty, workers' comp, general liability, stuff like that. And I had an agreement with the agency owner that I went to work for that when I'm ready, or in 2.5 years, my book is eligible for me to purchase and I can ride off into the sunset. And so that's what we did. We had a signed agreement. So I got deep into commercial insurance. I went through the like B2B sales grind. I started out, I would dial 150 businesses every day. I'd find out when they renewed their insurance. I built a list of 2,000 businesses, and then I just knocked on 30 doors a day, every day, and build a book of business that way.
So when you say knocked on 30 doors, do you
Walked
mean
in.
really? You walked in. You literally
Yeah.
went over. Oh wow! All right.
Yeah. I would go to
Or
30 businesses per day. I had, so
or gas bill. Did you use an electric bike to do that?
I did
That's
not. I had an app called Road Warrior. And so I would plug in the businesses I wanted to hit that day, and it would map out the most efficient route. So that was
awesome.
big. And then I had these little guys. I call them yellow fellas. And I would walk in and I would say, hey, like I just spoke to you on the phone. I know you renew so and so month. I know that's still a while away. I just want to leave you a business card, leave you one of these little guys. They're a stress reliever, they're a phone holder. If there's ever anything I can do to help, let me know. But if it's cool with you, I'll check back in like 90 days. Do you know who I should call and talk to? And it was just a follow up game. Everything went in the CRM.
Holy
I followed up, and it was a
This
grind.
is this is awesome. So you kind of brought back the door knocking, and it's what's interesting about that is I've said that many times to my whether it be my employees or to other entrepreneurs is you know eh, you know life kind of takes a cycle like a 20-year cycle all the time, like what was bad is good, and I think even I read somewhere like our taste buds change every 20 years,
Yeah.
and and so what was done in years past is not really done anymore. People don't hit the pavement anymore. Like that's just not a thing. And then I used to call it clover leaf, which is, if you go to like when I owned a pest control company, and if I did a treatment on a house, then I would go to like
Mhm.
5 other houses around and leave a flyer and saying, "Hey, we just treated this house." And I always liked it when I did a termite treatment because I'd be like, "Hey, we just treated this house for termites. Get a free inspection. You may have termites too. Let's get it." And it worked. I mean, it was a strategy that worked, and I like the yellow fellow. Is that what you call it? Yellow
That's it.
fella?
Yep.
And so and people will remember that. They'll remember that. There's a really cool program out there called Sensations. I don't know if you've ever heard of them. It's
Mm-mm.
a postcard, and an old realtor friend of mine, John Berger, he used to send those out. And the reason why they call them sensations is because they would send it's really cool picture of some kind of a meal and the recipe and how to make it. And then they would have his picture, have his name on there. And then what was neat is it was like the postcard that everybody keeps. And so like, and I noticed that because my wife did it. And like when we were we just got married, we get one of these, and I haven't done any work with this guy in like years. I haven't bought any property from him. And literally we put the this card up on our fridge, and it just sat there until she made that meal, and then we finally got rid of it. But it sat up there for 6 months, so I saw John Berger's face for 6 months, and it's kind of that same strategy, and that's why I really like Sensations. I think it was a cool program, and what you're doing with these yellow fellas. Um, if you went back to the 1920s, if you called someone yella, that's not good. That's a bad thing. You're kind of
Yeah,
calling them
not
a
cool.
chicken. Yeah, they all right. So you're leaving these. You're walking door to door. You're following up with people, and you're building this book of business, right?
Yep. So
And and so talk to me through that. So how'd you do on building that book of business, and then why step away from that?
yeah, it went really well. Eventually, it got to the point where I did buy my book of business, separated off on my own, and I got a bright idea to pivot from what we were doing. I think I thought it was going to be easier work. During COVID, couldn't go hit businesses door to door anymore. So I started reaching out through Facebook to write people's home and auto insurance. And I think that was kind of the beginning of the end because I went from more of a sophisticated sales process to a commoditized sales process. Like on business insurance, I could provide some knowledge on, hey, your building is like $1 million underinsured, or you have these exposures on your workers' comp. On home and auto insurance, like it's the same 9 line items. And it's just a race to the bottom line and what's your price. And you can add some value with service, but ultimately it just got to the point where I just did not enjoy what I did. And then I had kind of started this C4 Solutions business last year. In July, we started doing some marketing for businesses just because people were asking me what type of stuff we were doing in my company. And it grew organically. I had fun. Towards the end of the year, I decided, I don't think this type model is sustainable, but I think I'm really close. And started playing around with what that would look like. I said, I have solid experience in insurance. Let's just help insurance agents replicate what I did. And kind of the long story short is February of this year. So it's November 30th now. Um, I had to put down my dog that I'd had he was about to turn 15 years old. And during that process, it made me just think about life. What do I want my life to look like? What am I happy with? What am I not happy with? And so I decided, I don't love insurance. I cringe every time my phone rings and I have to write a policy. Um, I'm just going to sell this business. I'm young. I don't have to do it forever. It's not a loss. It's just this wasn't it. It was a stop, not a stay. And so I sold that agency. I was in a 2.5 year relationship, ended that. I had a long bucket list that I felt like I wasn't checking off. I decided to start traveling and then doubled down on this business. And so my life has completely changed since then. And it's been really cool. And it was neat. Like I felt like I had potential. And so when the opportunity finally came and I put in the work and doubled down, that's when it really grew. So it's funny. Again, we're going to get into it about the 10-hour work week thing, but it was not 10-hour work weeks when I started. It was, and even yesterday, I got to the office at 8 and I left last night at 7:30. So it's not always the 10-hour work weeks, but it was a whole lot of let's work Saturday and Sunday too to get this thing rolling.
Well, I can appreciate the honesty there, and I'm sorry to hear about your dog. That's
Appreciate it.
never fun. And I like what you said with the stop, and then it was a stop, not a stay. And when you're especially when you're younger, I mean, we talked off air. You're not married, you don't have kids, and when you're younger or you don't have those responsibilities, making those pivots are a lot easier. Like for me, making a pivot right now would be dual. I mean, I'm an entrepreneur through and through. I'll take financial risk for financial gain, and I have this crazy wild story, but my son and I started collecting cards like a month ago, and I would say we ended up buying a lot of cards, and when I say a lot, like 20,000 plus cards, and there a lot of them are 1970s, 1960s, and I'm starting to inventory them now, and it's funny because it's like you're you, you have to decide, like, okay, is this a hobby or is this going to be a side hustle? Like, what is this? And then so as I'm starting to inventory these cards, I'm like, wow, okay, I'm not even a tenth of the way through and I've got like 6 grand worth of cards. I only paid $150 for all these cards, which is insane. And so now it's like I'm pulling like Hank Aaron's, I'm pulling Eckersley, I'm pulling all kinds of rookie cards. I just pulled Roger Clemens' rookie card, and I was like, "This is insane that this person let these go." And I'm looking at him, and I'm like, "Okay, this is this little side gig," and I'm like joking with my wife, and she goes, "How many side gigs are you gonna have in your lifetime?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I blame it on my 7-year-old son. He started it." So, but I really like what you said there with this is a stop, not a stay, and recognizing that is so critically important. And sometimes that means taking a loss, taking an L. Sometimes that means that's a win, and I'm excited for you because it sounds like you're taking a win through that learning process. And we have this saying at my office, which is first you learn, and then you take the L out of it, and then you earn. And so it's like you got to learn and then you earn. And it sounds to me, and the insurance world is funny, Tyler. So a couple of things that you and I have in common. First of all, I've been in the insurance world for 15 years. So I started out at Geico, and then I went to Farm Bureau, and then from Farm Bureau, my wife and I we opened up our first agency over 10 years ago. We ended up having at one point like 4 or 5 agencies. Then we reduced it. We merged them, and we reduced them down to 2 agencies. And now we have one that went remote, and the other one is physical, but we own the building outright, so it reduces all the overhead. And so but yet we still have a $10 million book of business. And, it's like, why would we move that? And insurance can be definitely a cash hog if you play your cards right. And, but the other thing that we have in common, Tyler, is my middle name is actually Tyler. It's pretty
That's
funny.
funny.
So my son's middle name is Tyler, and my grandfather, who's not blood related, but he was grandfather to us, or we called him Papa. But he was Ed Tyler, and that's why my middle name and my son has middle name Tyler. And you may not know this, but he was the inventor of the electric start for your car. So if you start your car from
Hmm.
your fob, then now the grandson of the inventor who made that. And so I actually have the patent in my office. It's really fun. I mean, we get no royalties from it. I wish we did, but we don't. Yeah, so we have a lot in common here. So let's unpack a little bit about the insurance world. Okay, so for those who don't know, the insurance world is all about residual business. It's about growing a book of business, and a book of business is your clients. And then when you have, you ultimately your goal is to get to a sizable book that you can really then start gauging percentages based on retention. So if you have a 90% retention and you have 1,000 clients, then it's like, okay, I know that every year I'm going to lose 100 clients, so I've got to rebuild. I got to sell more than 100 clients at the end of the year. If I sell 150 clients, then I grew my book by 50 clients. So which is that's the ideal scenario for insurance businesses. So that wasn't for you. And now we roll into win with C4. I'm saying that name because that's your website. For those who listening and or watching, if you go to winwithc4.com, WINWITHC, and then the number 4.com. And so now talk to us. What is this company all about? What exactly does this company do?
Yeah. So last year I read a book called The E Myth. If anybody's ever read it, listened to it, and it really changed the way I looked at business. And so I started building out standard operating procedures inside of my insurance agency because I was stressed out. I was trying to hire help, trying to get support. It was really difficult to get somebody experienced. And so I just built the whole back end. Like, here's all the things I have to do in the agency. Here's a typed out guide on how to do it. Here's a Loom recording of me doing it. And so a couple hundred of these later, I decided, I'm going to try hiring a virtual assistant to do this. I had a buddy that had an Amazon store. He had a ton of them that were running his stuff. And so I hired a VA, handed them these SOPs. And 2 weeks later, I mean, we had a slick process where Jane handled all of my quotes, and she would just present me the final quote. All I had to do was go sell it. So I did that, and then I hired a virtual assistant to run my marketing and do all my social media. We would make like funny memes all day long, put my face in it, and make it like somewhat insurance related, just branding in local Facebook groups. And so I had leads coming in, I had somebody quoting the leads, and then I just sold the leads. And so it got smoother as we went. And so one day I was at a whiteboard, and I was like, I think it'd be cool to implement eMyth in another business and eventually grow it to the point where it could run without me. What would that look like? And I thought it was going to be a marketing agency. And so we listed out step by step what that was going to look like. The direction I took at the beginning of this year was I'm sitting on a gold mine. I have all of these couple hundred training modules on how to teach a virtual assistant to run the back end operations of an insurance agency. Why don't I just use that? We can still help with marketing, but let's help agency owners with something they really need. And so, February of this year, we started focusing on staffing virtual assistants for insurance agencies, and we work with other businesses too, but insurance is probably 70% of our clientele, and started having a lot of success there. And then we would sell them the marketing, telemarketing, whatever else they need that a virtual assistant could do. But that's kind of how the process got there. So C4, really, we focus on helping businesses blow up. So I talk about the automate, eliminate, delegate, stole that from Tim Ferriss, 4 Hour Work Week. So basically, we start with a time analysis worksheet. Where do you spend your time day to day? And then what are those tasks? Let's clump them together. See where you spend your time on answering your emails, doing prospecting, sending out proposals. And then how do we document that well? And then can we automate that? AI has made that a lot easier. Can we eliminate that? Like, is that necessary? Does it move the ball forward? And then can we delegate that to somebody else? And so the goal is to just start with lower level tasks like $10 an hour work. Let's delegate all that. And then let's go to $20 an hour work. And so you've got to hire a little bit better talent as you go, but it allows you, the entrepreneur, to spend your time on the highest leverage tasks. So that's really our focus.
So let me ask you then, and I think for our listeners, I think this is going to be really important. But what are some of those tasks? Because I can look at from my wife's agency perspective, like those tasks are typically done by staff. So we have staff that will handle those. But are you saying like you mainly focus on maybe the solopreneur, like that the person who doesn't have 10 employees, 20 employees, or how does your business bridge the chasm there with those who have 10, 20 employees?
Yeah, so for a solopreneur, that's where I feel like you're going to feel the greatest ROI immediately because you can pick out, like, for example, most people hate cold calling. Now, I know that when I was doing it, my answer rates and my conversion rates were higher than what I could have a VA do. I was getting 12% of people to give me their expiration date on insurance. A VA was getting 8, but it was worth it because I got that time back. And so it's just picking out where it may be a small drop, but you could hire 2 VAs and now you're getting twice as much output or a 50% increase from what I could have done. So that's where we started. A lot of people hire virtual assistants to do, like a generic business would be cold calling, social media. We create content, we edit videos, we staff bookkeepers for people, just lots of different services like that. In the insurance realm, a lot of what we do is we help them build out an intake form that gathers name, email, phone, address, driver's license number, etc. And so it's just a streamlined system to gather the information. And then the virtual assistant, we have training on how to quote a home in Travelers, how to quote a car in Progressive. We've got most of the major national carriers. And so we can teach them how to do quoting, renewals, send ID cards, issue certificates of insurance, all the back end stuff. And so it's really like a customer service rep. It's just somebody virtual.
Okay, so now this is where we're going to get a little deep here, because I'm going to, for those of us who are, in the insurance world, and again, I have not been in the insurance world for 3 years, so I do not or claim to be a professional in that field anymore. But my question to you is, when you're taking down information or you're quoting someone, you have to be a licensed, agent. So how do you get around that then? Because I would assume that most of these virtual agents are not licensed,
Right.
and so there's certain information that they can and cannot take or ask for. So how do you get around that?
Yep. So every state, the Department of Insurance is going to have different laws. Like Florida's pretty aggressive on theirs. Most states, it reads that a licensed individual has to gather the information and present the information. So with my standardized intake forms, I built it, the agent, it asks the same question every single time. So if I'm on the phone with somebody, I have to gather it. If a VA was on the phone with somebody, they couldn't do it even if it was just filling out that form. So by sending the form to the person, it allows them to answer all of the agent's questions, and it pulls it in. So the virtual assistant, all they're doing is data entry. They're taking the information on the form and entering it into the carrier site, which is the same process every time. And then they finish the quote, they put them all into our CRM, and then they make a spreadsheet that outlines here's the homeowner's quotes, here's the auto quotes, here's what we would recommend for the package. But it puts it in one spot. So I can pull up that spreadsheet, I can see the numbers. I know, hey, I'd rather bundle this together with this carrier. And so I take that and then present it to the client, or one of my producers does it. So it
Gotcha.
just takes out the middle process because it took me, if I was quoting with lots of carriers, it would take me 30 minutes to an hour to
Sure.
finish all of the quotes. So I'm just getting back that time that was repetitive.
Yeah, so there's really cool guy that we'll talk about it offline. But a buddy of mine who him and I, we owned agencies together, not together, but in the same broker dealer, and he ended up branching out on his own into an independent world, and something like this sounds like it would be something that he would want to tap into. I don't know how far along he's gone, but that makes a lot of sense. And like you said, the Bureau of Insurance is critical here, and you have to make sure you stay compliant. So, and it sounds like you are, which is great. And for those of you listening, I only carry a Virginia license. You're down in South Carolina, so I don't carry a South Carolina license. I do carry a North Carolina license, just because we're on the border. But a lot of these independent agents, they'll have licenses all over the country.
Yep.
So, and you have to stay compliant with each state. It doesn't mean like, oh, well, I live in Virginia, therefore I'm only need to be compliant to Virginia. No, you got to be compliant to each individual state. And I remember that back in my Geico days, I had to be licensed in like 42 different states. And there's a couple of states where they're like, nope, no one gets a license for there except for special people, because the laws are so jacked that you have to be very specific on what you say and can't say. But
Right.
I think New Jersey was one. I think Hawaii was another. But and then there was like states, like if they called and they were calling like Geico at the time, you might as well just go ahead and write yourself a check, because they're going to close up every deal. And that's not the same now. I mean, insurance world has completely changed. They're constantly being hammered. It's uh those who are okay, so interesting story. So now I'm in like all these card worlds, like, and any investor listening to this with MJB, calm down. I'm not doing this during work hours. Like, I'm doing this, like, honestly, this hobby is like from 9 at night to midnight, maybe 1 in the morning. But they uh what's interesting is like, I was talking to this gentleman who's like knee deep in this card world, and he was like, he did this like little video clip, funny clip, and it was like him saying goodbye to his cards as he walks out the door. And I understand that to an extent. Like, you don't want to leave some of your cards behind, because, man, these cards are worth quite a bit of money. And so he did that, and I left a comment on there, and I said, man, I said, what you brought to my attention was, when people leave, they automatically assume the renter's insurance or homeowner's insurance will cover that kind of memorabilia, and that's not the case. And you have all these different markets, and if you have jewelry, you have guns, you have uh, if you have I don't cards, whatever it is, fishing gear, you know,
Firearms,
yeah,
invaluable.
exactly. Like there's all these specialty policies that you have to protect against it. I had a client of mine who he was a Jewish man, and his grandmother was she was part of the encampment there in back in the Nazi era, and she had all this. He has all this jewelry from her, and I was like, look, man, I said you. He goes, well, it's covered under my homeowner's insurance, and I was like, no, it's not. I was like, come to find out that it was like 300, $400,000 worth of, historical jewelry. And I was like, no, you need to get a rider for that. And so anyway, so going back to you is that, having, for those listening, like, especially those who are on, solopreneurs, it's hard because you have to wear so many different hats.
Mhm.
And I'm known for my hats. I'm wearing a hat right now for the Brooklyn Dodgers. But if you could see my side of my wall to the other side, not in the video, I have a wall of maybe 40, 50 hats, and so I have an addiction problem with hats. But as an entrepreneur, we wear all kinds of hats, and what's important to realize is that you can't do it all. And what you're doing, there's things in business world where you're a vitamin and sometimes you're a cure. And you always want to be a cure because vitamin is like, oh, maybe it'll help me. But a cure, if I need this pill to cure this disease that I have, I'm going to give you all the money I got. And so in this case, it sounds like you're a cure, especially for those who can't do it all, who are wearing maybe too many hats. And
Right.
um, and I think that that's awesome that you have branched out to do this. So talk to me, Tyler, about what's an ideal client then for you? What's the perfect client?
Yeah, so the people that we can provide the most immediate ROI is going to be an independent insurance agency that focuses on home and auto. So we can plug in somebody there that's the equivalent of like a $22 an hour employee based on where they're at in the country. Somebody that has a few years of experience and can run the back end ops for an insurance agency. Outside of that, stressed out entrepreneurs that are getting bogged down in office work. So you still have to go build relationships. Like that's the key. That's going to be the differentiator that makes you successful as an entrepreneur. But if you're spending 3 hours a day on your email, there's a good chance that some of that can be streamlined. And so we've got guides that we write to try and give our clients on like, here's how you group your email inbox into buckets, like 5 buckets. And then here's like a general process of how you handle those. And so um, we're trying to, as we're going, we're taking pieces of the common businesses we're working with and creating standard operating procedure guides that we can just give out and say, hey, like, if you do this correctly, it's going to make your life so much easier. And Alex Hermosi talks about this. Like, we try to give the recipe and then sell the implementation. So we're trying to give out tons of resources to businesses. And then if it's valuable enough that they think that it's worthwhile, then we'll basically sell them a way to have somebody else do it. But we try to help as much as we can in some of those ways.
Well, that's awesome, and I think that as you continue to perfect your business, I think that you'll learn that there are so many people that they're on this cusp of, I need to hire someone, but I can't quite afford that other person, so I kind of need this fractional person, or maybe they have a stellar sales team, and now the service work is bogging them down, and you don't want to necessarily hire. You don't have the capital or the room or revenue maybe to hire another person, and this service can step in and I do understand, the dynamic too of going after independent agents. They certainly have way more flexibility with their ability to hire and bring on because they are truly independent and not, handcuffed to a certain brand. So, yeah, so I can appreciate that. So, hey, to our listeners, I do want to mention this, and I think this is really cool. We always ask you questions on, like tell us something that people don't know about us, and I wanted to just mention this, that you're an avid adventurer and that you just climbed Mount Kilimanjaro. Um, talk me briefly, like a 1 minute clip, like what
Yeah.
was that like?
Dude, it was incredible. So, like I mentioned earlier, where I had this long bucket list and decided I was going to attack it, that was the number one thing on my list I wanted to do. And actually, I was booking another trip, and it was a Saturday morning, and I was looking at flights, and I said, before I book this, for kicks and giggles, let's just see what else there is in the world. And the flights to Kilimanjaro had dropped pretty massively. And so I'd already been talking to a guide, and I was planning to do it next year. And I emailed him. I said, "Hey, I've got this really cheap flight. It's in 6 days. Could you have me a guide ready to take me up the mountain?" And he emailed back, "Yep." So I booked the tickets that day. So it was 6 days notice. I flew into Moshi, met my guide that day. He checked out my gear, made sure it was good, and the next day we hit the mountain. It was a total of 7 days. They've got all types of different options, but we were had a pack on, and then I had a porter carrying tent, food, stuff like that, and we just hit this thing, slept out in a tent on the ground every night. And days 1 through 5 wasn't that bad. Day 6, we got up that morning we started walking at 1 a.m., hit the summit at 6:50. We went from 15,000 to 19,000 feet that night, 19,341, I think. And it's 0 degrees whenever you leave out. So 2 hours in, your water freezes. I had planned for this, so I had a little half-liter bottle wrapped in 2 wool socks, so I'd have a little bit of something to drink on the way up. But man, it was like one of the most mentally challenging things I had done. I was off the grid for basically 2 weeks. I had a little satellite communicator so I could send text messages to people at night. So that was nice. But when I talk about I can run my business on minimal time, like I was gone for 2 weeks and I spent maybe 3 hours on the company. I had to do payroll one Friday, and that was about it.
You're gonna have to send us pictures. We're gonna have to post on that or something.
I
That
definitely will.
sounds incredible. And I can't help but think like the prep work in that. Like I if I flew in there, I'd be like, all right, cool. I've arrived. I'm at base camp, and I'm good. I'm good. I'm gonna go ahead and head on home now. This is now is Mount Kilimanjaro like Everest, where you see like floating bodies like flying down the mountain?
Luckily, no.
Okay,
I will say a guy died the day before I hit the summit. I
that's
had another friend that this made it real. One of her friends had hit the summit a month before I got there, and he passed away on the way down. So there's definitely dangerous spots on the mountain, but it's not like Everest where you're just uncovering these snow covered bodies. That'd be pretty rough.
Well, look, man, it seems to me like you and I we could talk forever, man, and especially because it's a world that I understand quite well, and I want to encourage you and compliment you on your successes so far. Encourage you to keep going. As an entrepreneur, it's the one career that you choose to work 80 hours so you don't work 40. In your case, you're working 10 so you don't have to work 40. I'm still gonna have to learn from the Yoda master here, or but I'm excited to watch your journey and your path. Make sure you keep in touch, and for those who are listening, if you go to winwithc4.com, again, that's WINWITHC, the number 4.com. You can also find them on all social handles at winwithc4. Make sure you check them out, give them a like, make sure you like this video. That way it gets it out to as many people as possible. But Tyler, it's been great, man. It's been a crazy show. Wish you much success. And off air, I'm going to get you connected to some people I think that can benefit with your business. So I'm excited to network for you. So, for those listening, thanks for tuning in. This is the sunset to Biztainment Weekly. So we say goodbye to Biztainment Weekly, and we say hello to MJB Podcast. Stay tuned for branding on that. And a big shout out to Magazine Jukebox. Magazine Jukebox has been live for just shy of 2 years. and I am excited to share that we just rolled over 51,000 scans to our program and our platform. We are growing and it is thriving, and we're excited to see what the future comes. So stay tuned. Check us out. Go to magazinejukebox.com. I don't know what the handle is going to be for the podcast. It's going to be something. And if you want to join the show, shoot us a message, because that's going to be changing from Biztainment Weekly somewhere. So I leave that all up to my marketing team. But anyways, Tyler, it's been great. Shout out to you, your company, and hang in there, man. And next stop, Mount Everest. All right.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you,
everybody.